All right, let's talk about Thor. I thought I was going to hate this movie. Yes, I've seen it multiple times, but now that I'm trying to go through and say my thoughts out loud, I thought for sure I'd be shitting on this movie. I thought this would be one of my least favorite reviews of all time, but uh, I now understand that this to me is two different movies. On one hand, you have this dull rom com out in the desert, and the other hand, you have this Shakespearean tale with Asgardian warriors and gods. And yeah, you have to slog through that rom com to get to the good stuff. But when you do, it's well worth it. And honestly, without that rom com stuff, Thor wouldn't be who he is today. That's just the truth of it. Chris Hemsworth, he does such a great job of playing a man that starts off just on top of the world. He's the next king. He's an ass kicker. He's been around for thousands of years, and he's just you can just tell he's a shoe in for the throne. He's just sliding on in, uh, but he thinks he's too big. He thinks he can just do whatever he wants. So Odin takes him down a peg, a lot of pegs. He just says, "Hey man, you're no longer worthy. That weapon of yours that you've been using for a long time, you can't use it anymore." you know? So Thor has to kind of take it back to the basics. Thankfully, Jane's there to help him along the way. She's kind of a beacon of hope for him in a sense, without him even realizing it. She just shows him what it's like to be human, what it's like to be with the little people, just hanging out at diners, sitting in trailers, and her being worried about cereal boxes for some reason. I don't understand that. When you see him sitting in the fire, or sitting in front of the fire rather, and he's going over Midgard and the other realms, just down to earth, grounded moments that help him realize who he's supposed to be king for, who he's supposed to be protecting, who he's supposed to be saving and loving. And yeah, without her, without that romantic bond between them, he wouldn't be the man he is today. All right, let's talk about Odin. Sir Anthony Hopkins. I know he said he just felt like they just threw him in front of a green screen and made him yell at the camera, but man, he's so damn good at it. He's amazing. Every scene you see him in, you just know he's the All Father. I mean, they just make him look so cool. Whatever kind of anger and vitriol he had behind the scenes, in front of the screen, he was just magnificent. I loved it. I loved every moment with him, especially between him and Chris Hemsworth. Seeing Odin and Thor fighting and beefing is so good. It feels, I use the word Shakespearean again. It's just that moment where he is just taking off all of his stuff and he casts them down to earth. It feels so epic. It feels so godlike. It's one of the first moments in the MCU where you're taken to the next level, and it's really awesome to see. That makes the end so much better, knowing that they had such a hard moment between each other, and now they finally get to kind of close the chapter and talk with each other, man to man. Seeing Odin put that hand on Thor's shoulder, I don't know about all of you, but I felt it. I still feel it every time I see it. It's that sign of approval. Like dad loves me kind of a thing. Next person we'll talk about is Loki. Loki, I have to admit, he was a bit under my radar at first. I didn't dislike him, but I didn't really care about him until I saw Avengers. Seeing seeing Thor again, I realize now that Loki is perhaps one of the most complicated villains in the MCU. He's actually my favorite MCU villain at this point, just because he's so conflicted, especially against somebody like Red Skull or Obadiah, where both guys are just assholes, or Whiplash, where it's all about revenge for him. Loki is a bit of greed and mistrust of his family. He just, for some reason, he would rather be king than have his family intact. He just goes out of his way just to fuck him over and stab him in the back over and over and over again, just so he can get that throne. And it's weird too because he doesn't realize how powerful his father actually is. When Odin goes into that Odin sleep, he's not really asleep. He's not like he's still aware. He's still around. He's still capable of doing things. And, so like even if Loki does take the throne, which he does, Odin just kind of wake up at some point. It doesn't make sense why Loki is as greedy as he is. He's kind of a tragic character in the sense he gets in the way of himself way too often to the point where he just ends up kind of letting go in the end. And I feel bad for him, but at the same time I don't. It's all his design. He chose to do all that to his family, and he chose to let go. And yeah. Okay, Heimdall. Heimdall's next. I love Idris Elba. Every moment I saw him in the movie, my eyes are all on him. He's a fantastic actor. I wish there was more of him in the movie, but every scene he was in was magnificent. He does such a great job of being cool yet somehow stoic. He does a great job of seeming like he's such a stick in the mud, but really, he's a good guy just trying to do good by his king. The fighting that you see him do, it's not a lot, but when you see him do it, it's fantastic, super killer. They set him up really well for the follow-up Thor movies. I overall just think he's a great character, and I am sad to see him go, but yeah, he did a great job. All right, so let's talk about action. The action, there's compared to the other Thor movies, there's not as much, but what's in there does a great job of telling you who these people are. They all look like badasses. You understand how badass Thor is. You understand how badass Loki is. You understand how badass Odin is. You understand how badass all of the people that help Thor are. Even when Thor doesn't have his powers, he's still whooping ass. And he just looks amazing doing it. Chris Hemsworth has such a great physicality about him. I don't know if you guys have seen him in some other movies like Extraction, but he's a fantastic action star. New age Arnold Schwarzenegger. But better. I love Arnold. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. But Chris Hemsworth to me is like next gen. Like fucking yeah, superb action hero. He makes Thor this being. I don't know if any other actor could have pulled it off as well as he did. Only gripe I have about the combat is some of the scenes a little bit too dark. MCU is kind of notorious for doing that. I'd like to kind of see a bit more clearly, but that's okay. We'll talk about the story next. Again, it comes down to two things. You got that rom-com between Thor and Jane, and you have this Shakespearean Asgardian epic between Thor and Odin and Thor and Loki. You got that father's love, you got that brother's love, you got that greed and betrayal going on. You got just the magical warriors. It's an interesting contrast. I realize now that you need the dull, drab desert rom-com to contrast with that beautiful rainbow just Asgardian kind of setting. It makes the Asgardian parts of the movie that pop out that much more. Without that rom-com side, I feel like the Asgardian Shakespearean story wouldn't shine as well. Also, just seeing Thor and Loki just interact with each other, especially in the final fight scene. Loki gives him such shit. He gives him such vitriol. And really, it's for no reason. He keeps saying just bad shit, like, oh, dad doesn't love me, and, all that kind of stuff. And you're just like, dude, like, Loki, you're fine, man. You're like the Prince of Asgard. Like, just chill. Like, you're super awesome. You're a great fucking wizard. If you just stop trying to stab your brother in the back, you'd probably be okay. Fairly solid opening for Thor. Some parts could be better, but overall, fantastic movie. Let me know what you all think in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later.